Hey people, welcome back. More Total War Warhammer 2 multiplayer action from CA's livestream on the way. This time, Queek, Headtaker, and the Skaven of Clan Moors against Lord Mazdamundi and the Lizardmen of Hexadal. First things first, I do want to draw your attention to the pricing of the infantry units for the Skaven. Remember, these stats and pricing are still changing, of course. I'm going to beat that into your heads, but it still gives us a pretty decent idea of what to expect in the final game. Skaven slaves are gloriously cheap, 125 gold and 150 gold apiece. Certainly a lot more mobility than zombies, but they aren't unbreakable, so much less efficient at tiring out enemy units. And of course, they can't be healed, so they aren't quite the tar pits that zombies are in Game 1. Apparently, expendable units like Skaven slaves will not imbue morale penalties on friendlies when they rout, which is really important. Very glad to hear that, because it basically defeats the purpose of having a great meat shield unit with low leadership if they make all your elite stuff receive leadership debuffs when they rout as well. I mean, Stormvermin, Poison Wing Globadiers, Rat Ogres, Hell Pit Abominations, they don't care when slaves are thrown into the meat grinder and run away. That's literally what's expected of them. So to make sure that they don't actually imbue those morale penalties when they rout, that's a very good thing for the game. The 4 Clan Rat variants are each between 350 and 425 gold. Seems about right in terms of pricing. Plague Monks are at 700 gold. Stormvermin Halberds at 1,000, which is a bit more expensive than I was expecting. And Stormvermin with Sword and Board at 1,100. Death Runners cost 1,000, and Plague Sensor Bears, the magic damage dealing, Armor Sundering Clan Pestilence Shock Troops, cost 1,100 as well. Doomwheel sitting at 1,400 gold, Poison Wind Globadiers at 650, and Rat Ogres at 800. So nothing really surprising here, except that the high tier Skaven infantry is a bit more expensive than I expected it to be, but let's jump into the battle. So, for Queek, Headtaker, and Clan Moors, a bit of Clan Scryer tech in the back with the Warp Lightning Cannons, which have been adopted in Total War Warhammer 2 as anti-large snipers, but without that RNGesus element from the source material. Clan Rats, Stormvermin with Halberds, and Plague Monk Sensor Bears make up the front line. Not a particularly swarmy build from the Skaven in this one, but with those incredibly cheap slaves, that will be an option available to you if you want to go the numbers route. Not sure how viable it'll be, but with 5 or 6 slaves and all those summons at your disposal, you will certainly be able to churn out some serious numbers on the field. Poison Wing Globadiers and Plague Priest also in the Desert Sands here. Looks to have pretty similar pricing to a lot of other casters from Game 1. 700 gold with few spells equipped, and Clan Molder Rat Ogres operating on the flank as a pseudo-cavalry force. Rocking a Skaven Warlord on a Bonebreaker inside a big wrecking ball of Rat Ogres is going to be a lot of fun. Might end up being one of the first things I do in free-for-all. Now across the way, across the Desert Sands here, Lizardmen have a very feral-themed army, characterized by their low leadership and capacity to rampage, but low price as well. You're essentially getting the punching power of the big monsters, but worse morale and control as the trade-off. So Feral Cold Ones out on the flanks, Feral Carnosaur in the middle, in the vanguard running up the center right now, a lot of Saurus Warriors, some Pterodons up top, they can drop rocks on the heads of their enemies, and of course, Lord Mazdamundi, Lord of the Solar City, on his Stegadon Zlaaq. So, massive armor value there, huge HP value, super tanky caster, probably going to be a very good Lord, but I believe Duck said that he's about 3,000 gold when he's got a lot of his spells equipped, so he's going to be insanely expensive to field here. Rocks get dropped on the Stormvermin from the Pterodons. Did a decent amount of damage there. They're going to go straight for the Warp Lightning Cannons. Doesn't really need to be said. Obviously, you should protect your artillery. And the Poison Wing Globadiers are going to open up fire on the Feral Stegadon. So, Poison Wing Globadiers are kind of been implemented interestingly in the game. They're functioning almost like Marauder Hunters with javelins. Very short-range, anti-large projectiles. Pretty sure that was an intentional design decision from Creative Assembly to fill the role of anti-large that the Skaven don't really have a whole lot of. They do have Stormvermin with Halberds, and they do have the Hell Pit Abomination, but besides that, they really do lack quite a bit of anti-large, so I guess they wanted to give them some kind of range capability that was good for killing large units. So, Warp Lightning Cannons will try to focus on the Feral Carnosaur in the center of the engagement. Cold One circling about, trying to get into the back lines, and Zlaaq is just going to absolutely stomp all these summons in the back of the Lizardmen army. Rat Ogres are on patrol, trying to get rid of those Feral Cold Ones, and the Pterodons did successfully land and tie down those Warp Lightning Cannons, but they'll be killed by the Clan Rats in the back. And we're getting a good look at Cold Blooded here, which gives you minus 24% speed, minus 27 melee defense, minus 26 melee attack. It's a single target heal that is, I believe, a bound spell, or maybe an army ability. I'm not sure which one. It's one of those for Mazdamundi and Kroq-Garn. I believe any Old Blood or any regular generic Lizardmen Lord. So you don't want to be popping that ability when your monstrous creature unit is tied down in melee. You want to cycle them out of combat and then pop the ability, because you're lowering their defense. They're going to be taking a lot more hits and doing a lot less damage when they're under the effects of Cold-Blooded. So you want to make sure that you're using that ability appropriately. Do not be using Cold-Blooded when they're in melee unless there's like no other option. I feel like you want to make sure they're out of combat when you do it. That Carnosaur just stomped through everything. Pretty satisfying there. And now the Warp Lightning Cannons are beginning to open up fire again into Mazdamundi and his Ancient Stegadon Zlaaq. So they are taking some fire here. Plague Priest in the center, trying to get away from that gigantic, terrifying Stegadon. And Trophy Heads was popped as well on Zlaaq, which is a pretty interesting ability that Queek Headtaker has. Single target ability that can only be used against enemy heroes and lords, I believe. Minus 45 melee defense and minus 26 melee attack there. So pretty powerful. Again, kind of like Wulfric's Hunter of Champions ability. He'll be a single target killer. Get him to duel an enemy lord. Pop Trophy Heads on the enemy lord. And against Zlaaq, there's only so much Queek can do. But against dismounted lords or ones that aren't going to be constantly bowling him over, yeah, Queek will be able to do a ton of damage with all his armor piercing and with that ability specifically. So right there is Verminous Valor. That's another ability that Queek has, and I think this one's actually pretty cool. So it's essentially an area of effect disruption, an explosion that knocks everybody down around him, sends him flying, and gives Queek the ability to escape if he gets surrounded. Grants him plus 24% speed, plus 8 leadership as well, but if he ever gets bogged down in an infantry engagement, you can pop that, do a teeny bit of damage to the enemy units that are around you, and give yourself some breathing room, which is pretty important actually. Doesn't work well against monsters or cav, unfortunately, which frankly are much more likely to bog him down and completely pin a dismounted lord like the Headtaker anyway, but it's still a pretty cool idea. There are certain instances in Total War Warhammer 1 where a dismounted lord will get completely surrounded by infantry, and you want that ability to just knock all the halberds or whatever surrounding you away and get your lord out of there. And so that'll give him a decent ability in which to do that. So Queek is not really in a great spot right now. He's engaging the Revivification Crystal on the Bastiladon, and Zlaaq, he's going to pop it again. But actually, I don't know if that... I couldn't tell there if that was the Bastiladon charging, or if that was getting knocked away by the Disruption ability. You're about to see Ruination of Cities on the left side of your screen, and it actually does a lot of damage here. That is the Mazdamundi bound spell that doesn't cost any Winds of Magic, I don't believe, and actually did some serious damage to one of those Clan Rat units. Was about, I don't know, above a third HP, and then went all the way down close to 0. So, not bad at all, and did damage to multiple units there as well. So, pretty interesting to see that in action. Looks like it could be actually pretty powerful. And I think that's something that could end up differentiating Teclis and Mazdamundi from their lesser caster counterparts. I think the design decision was made relatively early on to give them unique bound spells completely independent of the Winds of Magic, which if that holds true to the final release, and if they have those kind of options, it's a pretty elegant solution, right? You're giving them unique, cool looking, and hopefully decently impactful spells on top of their already sizable Winds of Magic pool to work with, and unique spell selection. So I think that's a good way to handle them. And then of course you look at Mazdamundi's stats, his health, his armor, his overall tankiness, and when he's on that Ancient Stegadon, I don't think there's any question he'll be a decent Lord pick as long as the price is right. Super expensive overall, of course, but you aren't required to completely kit him out, and you can save money in quite a few areas if you so desire. Those Warp Lightning Cannons are beginning to take their toll, but there is still a Bastiladon on the field with the Revivification Crystal. That is hard to say, man, damn. So this is a pretty interesting unit. It's a Bastiladon with a crystal on top that can actually revive units. It has 10 charges. It can literally bring back units from the dead. It heals damage models first, so kind of like Invocation of the Heck a little bit, but it heals a unit for 500 health roughly over a 26-second period, and like I said, it has 10 charges, so there's a lot of healing. That's 5,000 heals, or 5,000 HP healing in throughout the course of a game if you use it to its fullest potential. That's essentially like getting a new unit if you're able to, well no, because it's not like Earthblood, it's like actually like Invocation of the Heck, so it will revive units. So you are always going to get that full maximum amount of healing, which is pretty important. So I think, depending on pricing, it could be a very decent centerpiece to your line, and will for sure give you some nice sustainability on the battlefield, which is something the Lizardmen could definitely use. Given Temple Guard and stuff like that, that much healing would be a pretty big deal. And you can actually see that Queek Headtaker's ability, Verminous Valor, must have a really low cooldown, because that's the 3rd or 4th time this game, maybe the 5th, that he's cast that ability. So that's pretty crazy. And you just saw there, actually, that's really interesting. Saurus do not have their fatigue refreshed when they rampage. So when their primal instincts kick in, it does not actually refresh their fatigue like Berserkers in Rome 2 or some of the previous Total War games where Berserk was a thing, which is an important point to make. I thought that it would refresh, and maybe it does for some units, but at least for the lower level primal instincts, it does not. Pretty interesting there. I feel really bad for Mazdamundi and his Ancient Stegadon and the Feral Carnosaur at this point. Warp Lightning Cannons are just taking their toll in the late game here. They're getting shredded apart by that sniper fire from long range, and he's not long for this world. A couple more shots from the Warp Lightning Cannons, and I expect Mazdamundi to go down, and he'll disappear in a blaze of glory in, I believe, right about now. Yeah, he's going to go down. And that was actually really cool. He goes down and disappears. I think the Slann models actually just like vanish into the warp when they die in this game, but there's like a big green puddle on the ground where he got hit, which I think is just the Warp Lightning Cannon shot, but it looked like he got blasted into oblivion there. So the Rat Ogres and the Stormvermin are going to close the gap on the Feral Stegadon, and I believe there's just a couple Temple Guard, which look amazing in this game, by the way. They have one of the coolest looking models in Total War Warhammer 2. Super awesome. Hoping beyond hope they don't have the same halberd problems that were present in Game 1. Looking like the halberd problems might still be an issue in Game 2, unfortunately. But these guys are wielding one-handed halberds, so it might not be the same thing that the two-handed halberds like Phoenix Guard and Stormvermin with halberds will have. We'll see if it ends up being an issue for them in terms of a low base attack time and basically not being as good versus infantry as they really should be. But either way, interesting battle for sure. A lot going on there, a lot of information to glean from that one. Kill count's obviously going to be a little bit inflated for the Lizardmen simply because they were playing against the Skaven, who are known for fielding more troops than a traditional faction, and because of all their summons, but still some pretty impressive kill counts. Mazdamundi 175, Saurus Warriors with 215. Feral Stegadon and Carnosaur did their job, I feel like, but overall, I think the Warp Lightning Cannons made the biggest impact on the game, sniping down those big targets. Once he got them under control, that definitely shifted things in his favor. Hope you guys enjoyed this one. Talk to you very soon. Indie Pride signing out for now.